E17 of the See You in Valhalla podcast.
Welcome to Valhalla.
See You in Valhalla. Jeff and I today are going to be discussing the power as far as the adaptations to fitness and the 10 general physical skills that you can acquire. Today we are talking about power, but before we do that, we're going to kick things off with this controversial video.
Oh yeah, here we go. Come in hat. I guess I don't want to click on it on the screen over
Up,
there.
right? Show of hands. Something's wrong.
She fell.
Yeah, she fell.
I think it's wrong enough that someone should be pissed. Who? Everyone that knows. I think you should be pissed. So we can save anyone that, come here, give me your hand, I got you. See, the problem's simple. I believe that CrossFit has an elegant solution to the world's most vexing problem. It's not going to be a pharma solution. It won't be a surgical intervention. It's not going to be some new crazy form of radiation treatment, because the problem is rooted fundamentally in excess carbohydrate and not enough quality movement in your life. Sitting on the couch and refusing to get up is a willful behavior and deadly. Right here, and that's what's happening in your boxes. You thought it was about the fitness. It's really not. Each box, each gym is a lifeboat.
Pause.
CrossFit.
CrossFit.
Yeah, so that was put together by a guy who kind of regularly, I don't know how to put it, like slams some of the CrossFit stuff going on in hopes to make it better in the long run, I guess you could say. And so I think that video that he created, overlaying Greg Glassman speaking with the video that was in the background, comes from wishing that CrossFit did more media stuff and like tooted their own horn more, so to speak. But anyway, here's where I think the controversy is with that particular video. And just, we could take the CrossFit side out of it and just that video alone and blasting it. And is shame bringing us closer to fixing problems or further from fixing problems?
So you see her falling and being in like that situation as being like a shameful act, like posting that? Or is that what the controversy is?
I think that's what the controversy is.
Oh, okay.
So like, yeah, I mean, I take it, I'm very black and white on it. And like, yeah, you should be able to get up and do that. And if you can't and it gets posted on the internet and blasted, it's like, deal with it. Take it as your sign, move on,
Yeah.
But I know people are more sensitive nowadays, so I'm not so sure it is so black and white.
Yeah. I mean, it can be black and white for us, but I think, in my opinion, like, you don't know you have a problem until you find out you have a problem in some cases. And maybe that's like somebody watching that video. I mean, maybe it's not going to a CrossFit gym or doing anything like that. Maybe that's like, oh shit, could I get up and save my grandkids, my child from a runaway cart? Like, could I do that? Like, think to yourself, could you pop your ass back up and run over and save your kid and not count on somebody else? 'Cause that was like crippling for that person. That was like, that's not going to happen. And in my estimation, they didn't seem like they were in like a morbidly obese situation. I mean, they were like a heavier set person, but like knees were given out. Like, it was just bad.
Well, we don't know. There could have been a significant injury on that fall too.
Yeah, that's true. But isn't that, we learned how to tumble yesterday.
Yeah. So I do think we have to look at how to avoid falling. And that way, maybe there's no fall in the first place. Maybe it's more of a stumble.
Yeah.
Right. So if you look at falling, like in that video, you're going to see a delay before the foot can catch that person, and therefore they just eat it.
Yeah. Didn't stand a chance.
Whereas if you had quick feet, you can catch yourself.
Different story. I mean, we talked about broken hips last week, right?
yeah, I mean,
Oh, man, are you losing me?
it all comes back to like, why do we have to? What's that?
Did you just
You're
hear a
frozen.
ding?
You're frozen.
No.
No.
No. Am I back?
Okay, now we're back. We're back.
No, we're back. Sorry about that.
What were we saying?
I
What were you
had
saying?
said last week we talked about the broken hip, but you had said that there was a delay in the step, which caused a fall, and then we need to look at. And then I think you were trying to make sure I wasn't lost
Yeah.
forever.
I mean, oh, so I guess my frustration is we're always waiting until it's too late.
Yeah.
Right? Like that person, that's what could be the moment that makes them realize it's time to change
Mhm.
their ways, so that something like that, they're never put in that position again. But wouldn't it be nice if we never had to be in that position to learn we wanted to keep from being in that position?
Yeah.
And I feel
She's
like
like,
we
"Man,
have all the words coming out of our mouths to prevent that, but nobody wants to do it until it's too late. And it's so much harder to gain back when you're so far gone than it is to just maintain some level of fitness or health.
Yeah.
So I find it very frustrating. But then what came out anyway was that video posted, and I actually shared that video and as a story thing. And then I saw another company or group kind of talk about how shaming this person doesn't bring them to the table. It actually prevents them from coming to, because when you're shaming them, you're getting everybody who agrees with you to come to the table, but everybody who agrees with you is already at the table. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
So shaming that person or of that person, it gets more fit people to the table.
can hear that side of the argument, but I fully disagree with that side of the argument. It's like
Okay, let's hear it. Why?
yeah, so it's like it goes back to the whole thing. It's like you can't just sit down and have like an honest conversation with people. You know what I mean? They're so set in like their ways and their opinions that it's like they don't even want to hear like an alternative like view of something. 'Cause perception is reality, and if you think that like, you know, that person's not going to come to the table and like try and get better, I mean, that's just I can't imagine a scenario when you have somebody who's like has that maternal or paternal instinct, or like they care about their children, and that happened to them, and them not saying to themselves, I hope that that never fucking happens again. How do you fix that? In my mind. And then
Well,
on the other, oh, go ahead.
okay, so here's what I'm saying. Really, that person.
Hey, it actually looks a little bit better right now. If you
right.
just don't move, the pixels catch up.
I think it evened out.
There we go.
I'm not trying to bring literally that person to the table. I'm trying to bring figuratively that person to the table. The table being the fitness table.
So what would stop them from showing up after watching a video like that? Being like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed because I'm unable to jump back up," or even casually
Yeah,
step
I
up?
mean, so I think what's interesting to me is a lot of people took that video, especially the one we watched, as a slam, like where it's like you're fucking stupid, get in the gym. And it's like bringing your own shit to the table to have that argument in the first place. Whereas for me, it's very simple. You want to be able to not let this happen, right? Like it's that
Yeah.
simple. That's where it's black and white to me. But I think a lot of people, and there might be some validity to this, but the problem isn't, this isn't the root. Shaming isn't the root of the problem. If we go back to every tribal, like we are tribal people,
Yeah.
essentially, right? Whether we want to be or not. The shaming has been a part of our culture since our inception, right?
Yeah.
So if you were in times of famine or weight, you were then that you're taking fuel in your fill.
Yeah.
And not putting forth the effort to bring the community to a better level. And I see no difference today. I know that we have a more complex system, but I see no difference. Like how much medical costs are now are simply because of how many people we have not cast out. Right. And I don't think we could ever literally, now we don't even have an option to ever really cast somebody out unless they murder somebody.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, that's okay. But like there's a better way to go about it. And sometimes holding standards is what's most important. So what I see is like, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did you want to finish your thought? Because I will not forget mine.
No, I won't forget mine either.
Okay,
Standards.
good. Okay, good. It would be interesting to see where people stood on it had the baby been hit by a car.
Oh yeah.
Because
I mean,
there's
I was sick watching it, but
yeah, you're like, oh my God, that baby's going into traffic. And like the focus right now is all on, oh, that poor person that is like scared to go to the gym now because we have like shamed them, when the focus needs to not be on that person, but on the baby rolling into traffic. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you stop that? I don't give a shit about your broken knee. I give a shit about that baby that's rolling into traffic. And it's like, take your focus and put it on like actually what's important and not be worried so much about hurting that person's feelings, because somebody, I don't remember what it was, but there was this thing was like, if somebody keeps calling you a liar, there might be like a little bit of truth to what you're saying. You know what I mean? And if somebody's saying, hey, you're kind of out of shape and you're not going to be able to catch a baby rolling into traffic, you should probably think about that. Like, it's not about you. It's about the baby. You know what I mean? And this is so off the wall. Like, I've never seen anything like this. But if it happens once, it could happen twice. You know what I mean? And it might not even be that.
It probably has.
Yeah. Who knows? So it's like
a baby probably has died in that same situation.
Yeah. It just wasn't caught on film, you know, and somebody
Yeah.
didn't go and post it everywhere. So it's like, focus on the right thing. Focus on how you can make yourself better to make the people around you safe, to like be able to stop a situation like that. Like, I don't know. I've got zero patience for I'm hurting that person's feelings. Like, I understand. Like, if I saw them, I'd be like, man, I'm sorry that happened to you. But that's it. Like,
yeah, I'm not going to like, I don't think I'm willfully going to attack the individual as a person, but I am going to attack the overarching principles that got us here, which is we keep lowering the standards of health and raising the costs of what it takes, what little standard is left. So it's, and we're focusing on silly standards too, like cholesterol. Like, that's not the best standard to go off of.
Don't
It's
eat the
a
egg
number.
yolk.
It's not all of the, it's not all of the picture, right? And you get people afraid of cholesterol, and then they stop eating egg yolk, and then they stop producing hormones because they don't have cholesterol and vegan. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden your hormones suck and you can't manage your weight because your hormones suck. And it's like this spiral out of control.
And you need Viagra. Sorry.
No, my fucking computer goes black like every 20 seconds if I don't touch it regularly. So anyway, it's I don't know, it's a long-winded conversation to say like, hey, let's stop lowering our standards of our own people in our tribe. In our tribe, at United States, sure. At small is CrossFit Magni and so on. And I think we have to be better at just holding ourselves accountable to more standards and not lowering the standards because percentage-wise we can't meet the numbers. And that's exactly what our military has done. They created standards and then they lowered them and lowered them again because our society can figure it out. And it's like just raise where they're at, you know, put baby in a corner and they'll figure it out.
No one puts baby in the corner. And it's more than just that too. It's like your family, right? So if you actually care about somebody, you should try and like elevate them. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like I've talked to the people in my life that are in an unhealthy situation. I'm like, why don't we go for a walk? Why don't we go for a hike? Why don't you come to the gym? Why don't you come and do this? It's like, hey, there's like all these things that you can do to like, I guess, elevate everybody, like you're saying, and make sure that, you know, it's
Yeah.
You're trying to keep your tribe healthy, right? It's interesting. Maybe that's why I love Survivor. Kick the weak ones out.
Yeah. I mean, none of us are perfect in any of that stuff, but it would be helpful if there were standards and everybody was holding each other to them. And when it was not being, the standard wasn't being met, that person needs to know.
Just don't.
Right? Like, say the standard for fitness existed completely, which I would argue kind of does. Then they're not meeting that standard. Then it's plain and simple. Their costs for medical are higher. Right? Now this starts getting into government things, but the problem is I don't want to pay for my tribe not holding their own because I have zero means of holding them accountable to that other than this Instagram post that might bring them some shame.
Yeah.
That's my only means of holding them accountable to holding our standard as a society of health.
Or
I don't have any influence
slapping
over
them
the
to open your
doctors,
eyes.
over the politics. Yeah. So, but if I did, I could say that I would be shit out of places like McDonald's. I would have sugar taxes. I would, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's how the government should be making money off of our sickness instead of making money off of our health by turning us into sick human beings.
There's way more money in that.
So basically, in order to not get kicked, I'm saying I really support our government, and I think everybody's doing the best that they can with what they have.
We follow all of the guidelines. Ding. You've been flagged.
We support them. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about power today. So another adaptation to fitness is power. We've talked about endurance, cardiovascular endurance, that is, stamina, strength, and flexibility. So now we have power. So what is power if it's not strength? And, you know, vice versa. So if we look back at strength, strength is the applied force of something. That it was the maximum potential to contract a motor unit, basically, which when we look at it in practical situations or like in a CrossFit situation, it's what can we physically move or resist in movement? Total weight, total something like that, right? That's strength. Power now adds this element of speed to that. So it has to not only be done, but it has to be done quickly.
I was waiting for you to ask me, and the whole time I was sitting there staring at you, thinking of what my answer for power would be. And I appreciate you not hanging me out to dry there, because I was going to say something like just getting it started. Like you got it. Like if you're doing a deadlift, it's like you got to start getting it off the ground, or you know what I mean. So I'm glad you saved me. Long story short.
Yeah. So if we wanted to clearly define the difference between strength and power, it's just strength doesn't matter how much time it takes you. It's just the load, let's say. Whereas power is it does now matter how much time that it takes. So you're looking for maximum force or strength in minimum time, and that equals power.
It's like an equation.
It is an equation because force equals mass times acceleration. So when you're strength training, you're just focused on mass, ignoring your power acceleration, not at ignorance of mass, but you don't really could be the most prominent feature of the movement. So what we've done as humans is we found a couple movements that are just powerful, like they have to be in order to be complete, and that's the clean and the snatch. Because you're not going to be able to do those for strength. That you can't slow those down and still have a good force behind it, right? So now we know they have to be done with speed, and they're exceptional at it, right? Like there's probably I should have looked this up. I always do this when I like think of a study I've seen a million times and then I haven't looked it up, so I don't know where it's at.
Look for it.
I'll look for it. You talk.
Well, when we were talking about the snatch and the power clean, I was just going to say that I feel like I've got some serious hip issues. And I think, isn't there like a lot of the power or the strength that comes from, power that comes from that hip movement? And would that be a huge limiting factor to why I can only lift limited amounts during a snatch and a clean?
Yeah, I mean, probably one of your fastest moving joints is going to be your hip.
How do you get better at that? Just practice?
Practice, and then making sure that you're like biomechanically in a position to do that.
Well, we already know that I can't get there because you tell me that. You always give me that cue when I'm right there. I have a hell of a time getting into that biomechanical position.
Mhm.
But is it better to do it with weight while you're practicing, or is it better to just do it like the Bergner warm-ups? Because I do want to get better at this, and I might be taking us down a rabbit hole here or a
Are you
tangent.
talking about specifically the hip extension?
Yeah. Just like getting in that position and like just giving that power from that hip, like to push the bar.
Oh, I mean, when you're doing the actual lift, that's the lift has to be done fast. It can't be done slow, right? So you don't really have a choice at the full lift. Now you could use something like a clean deadlift to train it in a slower manner, but still hit positions better. And you can also work on overloading that so that regardless of weight, your body wants to move that way. But just think how many reps it's going to take to break a habit.
Yeah. So just keep doing it. Keep practicing.
Yeah. And making sure that you're setting yourself up for success with that practice. So like if you know that adding weight and doing just traditional cleans makes you miss that portion of the movement, then that's not the way to work on it.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's more than one way to skin the cat, but basically we just want to look at like what helps us. I couldn't find that thing, by the way. What helps us improve our power output and why is it important, right? So let's go into why we think power is so important. So from your perspective, why is power important to us as humans?
Why would power be important? If we go way back, maybe to help us throw a spear to kill something.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that a good answer?
I would say so. Yeah. Because if you threw that spear using the heaviest spear that you could find, how fast is that going to go? How accurate is that going to go? And how far is it going to go? Right. So if it's
All
the
the important
heaviest
things.
spear, it's probably hitting the dirt about 2 feet in front of you with a really low velocity.
Yeah.
And almost no accuracy. Right. So we know that spear had to get lighter and lighter and lighter so that we could find the nice equilibrium of speed, accuracy, and force. Right.
Because if it's too light as well, it's not going to actually puncture anything.
Correct. Yeah. Or, if it didn't have the right tip in some cases too, that would probably be relevant. But I mean, even if you took something dull, but it was just the right weight and you got just the right velocity, it's going to pierce the target regardless.
Yeah.
But we knew as humans, like, hey, we're not going to be able to have a blunt edge and produce the power that it takes to pierce it. Right.
So adjust.
But I would say throwing a spear is a great example of where originally we needed power. Right. Go ahead.
And then I would say more recently, the power to get up off the asphalt and go and save your child.
I mean, there's a few components there, but I would say there's something to that. But I would say there's other components of fitness that were more important in that scenario than power per se. But there's a lot of overlap with all these adaptations. And so I think the other thing you're getting from power is really explosive abilities. So, train a really, really heavy squat versus a really, really fast squat and tell me which one makes your hips move faster. Right?
Really fast, right?
Yeah, the really fast one is more likely to make your hips faster than a really heavy one.
Yeah.
Right? Now that doesn't mean in the abs like you can use heavy ones and then work on faster ones and you can actually bring both up better, right? Than more optimally, which is why I say there's all this crossover. So it's not saying just focus on power or strength. It's saying, let's focus on both of these, and actually the tides rise equally and maybe even faster, more optimally for these two, because they're very complementary. But also, like, thinking in today's world, there really isn't a ton of need for power per se when it comes to like what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Right. However, training power does improve the amount of fast twitch muscle fiber we have. It does improve our function of a hip, let's say in this case, or function of a knee. If it can be fast, it can be slow, it can be, you know what I mean? Like if we have that functional ability where it's like fast, slow, it can adapt to any task, then that's also good. And when we lose the speed of something, what's next? There's only half the equation left, right? Because if you lose speed and overall ability, then we're done. So not only do we want the ability to extend the hip, we want it to be done fast. And
Quickly.
If we maintain fast twitch muscle fibers as we age, we are actually defying a lot of the aging process. And the longer we can defy that with our physical body, likely the longer we defy that with our mental side of the body as well. They're not separate pieces, really. So that's always kind of been my argument, is maintaining fast twitch muscle fibers over time is becoming increasingly more important as we age, because it maintains the function of the joint.
Yeah, and it actually hung around with me all week ever since you brought it up last week. But like, we could all just be training for like that one opportunity to, like, you know, the one fall that could be the one that like breaks a hip, the one thing.
And it
like,
sounds
we don't know what it
silly,
is,
but I would
Yeah.
rather be trained for it and never know that I was trained for it
Yeah.
than to know for sure that you did not train for it.
Yeah.
And be sorry about it.
Yeah. Regrets.
Yeah, so I mean, there's not a ton of place for power as far as like why we use it. But if you're looking at the longevity of our joints and the longevity of our muscular skeletal system, we need that. And if we don't have that, we limit our options for what keeps our mind sharp and young as well. Because as soon as the power is taken away from us and all we can do is slow activities, then the mind's next, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of time before we can't challenge our brain enough with communicating with our body to the point where we're getting less and less movement, therefore more and more atrophy as we age.
That's crazy. I've never put like that portion of it together, but I did know that like when people retire or they stop working, like they could start bringing on some like dementia type things, and like they've been staving it off for so long with working and keeping their mind sharp and like, staying on top of it. And then all of a sudden, we're just sitting around watching the wheel or the Jeopardy, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
then
you could probably,
here it
I'm
comes.
sure there's something out there that would say the, people who retire, what percent movement they do less of, let's say, like once they retire, they no longer have a purpose. Now they do less of all these other things. And that's kind of like a sudden change for some people.
Yeah.
Really, really unhealthy, right?
Gets to them. Oof.
So yeah, I think the main reason for power is kind of the fast twitch thing. Now I also look at like playing with our kids and having that relationship aspect of life. I think there is a lot of times where power is actually applied to that scenario. So like think of the dad who can throw their kid up in the air and have that kind of like fun connection time. Like, is it necessary? No, I guess, but like it'd be nice to make sure that they have like an easy way to connect, like,
Yeah.
and that goes on through ages. Like my son is, 13 now. I'm not throwing him above my head. But we're playing basketball and I'm trying to dunk on him still and stuff like that. So there's still plenty of opportunities for power in my life that allow me to connect more with the people close to me, which is going to give my life more sense of purpose as I age. And, all the things that I've been training are going to make sense for that reason.
Yeah. Did your kids ever have like a weird thing that you used to do for him? Like that you would have to use like strength or balance or agility, like one of these things or all these things? Is there like a thing that you used to do, or was it the throw him in the air thing?
I don't know if I had like a specific thing.
Yeah.
Are you asking thing that I can no longer do?
No,
I would
not
say
necessarily.
okay, because I was gonna say I would say the energy it takes to throw him now is just not worth it for either of us. Like, you know, because
It's
like
like what,
when they're
90
little, you're
pounds?
looking at like 20 to 30 pounds,
Yeah.
and you have it all on these two hands, right? So all their center mass is into this two hands, but 20 to 30 pounds that covers more surface area for that weight to be supported. Well, now he's significantly longer.
Yeah.
So
It's
all
still on
that
the
center
ground.
of mass being on two hands is a lot different for him. Like it's just crushing,
Yeah.
right? Um, Plus the fact that now I have to exert myself like exponentially more just to do it. I don't think it's fun for either of us at this point.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, no, no, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
You mean
Yeah.
throw you? No, no, thank
Yeah.
you. I used to hold, I guess I still do. I hold Charlie, but like
Hmm.
I tell him to climb up onto my hand, and then you like that whole cheerleader hold. You got both their little
Yeah.
feet in your hand,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
then see how long you can like balance them around without without them falling. It's like my favorite thing to do. Like I'll
Dude,
do it
how
with
many times have you hit their head doing that?
not even once. There was
No
one
way.
fall, but not above. I'm never like that because that's kind of scary with my hand above
Yeah.
my head. But it's like just in front of me. But like every now and then he like Charlie gets a little squirrely and like thank God we're just doing it on the couch. Otherwise there might be a few more injuries. But that was my thing. I really enjoyed doing that.
Okay, so if I could bring it full circle to just kind of highlight why power is important, I would
Uh-huh.
say it's sound joint function over time and just general like I want to live longer and then create better relationships in that process. And typically having a more powerful hip will lead to better relationships.
Wink. I heard a couple people talking about your Bring a Friend Week poster, by the way,
Oh,
on the
good.
wink, wink, wink. Yeah, it was nice. It was a good
Yeah.
job.
Thanks. Yeah.
Sold.
So, yeah, the fourth step of bringing your friend to the gym is they have better sex for the rest of their life, and they have you to thank. And I'm just thinking about
Forever.
how awkward that conversation is between two people who are
Yeah.
never going to.
Yeah. It'd be like, but so how is it? How,
um,
how's your intimate life?
is it better now because of
Is it
me
better? Yeah. You
taking
should
the
have an
credit?
exit interview or like an exit survey. Like, oh hey, you've been here for a month. How are things going? How's your mental state? How's
Mhm.
your flexibility? How's your and see what sort of response you get.
That would be
I'd be
fun.
interested. Yeah,
Maybe. Um,
ish.
but at any
We're
rate,
gonna
those
change
are
the
kind of like
subject.
the big whys. So we got to think about how do we train power. And I think the most important thing people need to understand is power is focused a lot on the velocity of something, right? Now you can challenge it with a little bit of load, or you can actually relieve load in order to focus more on the speed or the
Okay, so like the
velocity.
faster hip rather than the heavier weight, right?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Right? And so you don't necessarily have to throw the biggest weight around so much as you can be throwing lighter weights around faster. You can use the squat to train power or strength, not necessarily one or the other, but that means there's a very different load on the bar. You can jump taking weight off of you by grabbing a band that's suspended, right? And that way
Mhm.
alleviates some of your weight so that you can focus on a faster explosion off of the ground,
Oh, okay.
right?
Because if you build
So,
in increments, it's not so stressful like on your joints or on your muscles then, just by taking a little bit off.
well, it could be that, but it's something, when we get to speed, we could talk about this too, but overspeed training is kind of like a similar neurological effect where it's like give your body the ability to do it even faster.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, I've peaked out. How can I jump faster without just jumping faster? Well, I can alleviate some of my body weight and learn how to jump faster. Right.
Genius.
Right. Or have, they have these contraptions that could do things like this where they can actually pull you up, right? So it's like now when you jump, there's a little bit of assistance there, right? So looking at it from multiple perspectives, you can challenge it with more load, but still have an emphasis on speed. You could challenge it with less load with an even greater emphasis on speed. But usually there's like a deteriorating effect there too. So that's why I
With
think
what
it's
part?
nice to just have balance. So like, let's say, okay, let's say we're doing a back squat.
Okay.
And we're trying to move as fast as we can from the bottom up. Well, at some point, the weight's going to get to the point where the velocity on the bar is going to slow down, right? At some percentage of your max, let's say, that's going to take place. Okay. So that has a deteriorating quality where it's like, we want to make sure we always stay on the other side when we're training power. Okay. Or we've done so many sets that fatigue is starting to become a factor that the same weight's now moving slower. That means we're no longer hitting the power effect, right? Going inversely, what if we're making it lighter and lighter and trying to move faster and faster, but there is no actual faster going on? Then we know we didn't actually improve the speed at which that's happening.
It's all happening at the same pace.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think I got that. I followed that.
I mean, there is some technology where we can measure that, but typically it's invasive and unnecessary for us to really do. And you could kind of subjectively watch for most of the normal population and see that the bar is slowing down or speeding up.
So then, hold on. Say we're back to the back squat, right?
Mhm.
And so, when we lose that velocity, does it go from power to strength? Is that when we flip it over? And
Basically, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's like if your goal for the session is strength, then you don't want to spend too much time in your fast repetition. You want to get to heavy and challenge it.
Would we do tempo work for that then?
To slow it down.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, like, tempo work wouldn't necessarily, I don't think that would necessarily it definitely wouldn't do anything for power.
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't do too much for strength when we're looking at like the testing of it. But it might make some resiliency to position faults and give your body a better like mechanical ability. So like when you slow it down, think about, okay, it's now way harder. So my body's working harder to do this load that otherwise is light for me.
Okay.
Because like tempo, you slow it down so much that it's actually hard.
It's like painful.
Right. So that fight that your body is going through could start recruiting more muscular units to help with the overall lift. But until you've actually tested that, there's no way to say that for sure did that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
But you could argue that if somebody's never done tempo training, it's likely going to improve their maximal strength because it's a big hole in what they've trained is they haven't slowed it down to the point where maybe it could recruit more muscle to help out.
I gotcha.
Or like there's a position of weakness through the movement. Tempo is a great way to hit that weakness without knowing exactly where it's at too.
Because you have to force your way through it.
Yeah, because you're going to fight during the portions that are the worst. And because you're going slow, you have a little bit more control over whether you mess up or not. So I think you're doing like a speed back squat on the way up, but on the way up, your body, your torso goes from this position. It's supposed to go from here to here, but instead on the way up, your butt rises, and then the rest rises. Now the velocity on the bar might be similar, but you've broken down mechanically. So doing a tempo rep where you have to go slow just gives you time to fight for that position with lighter weight typically.
Yeah, or depth on the way down. I know you've done that. You're like, I'm going to count to 20 on the way down, and if you make it before 20, just try harder.
Yeah, that's the eccentric load, which they say, there's a lot of studies that if you eccentrically overload something, especially, like it will grow back stronger. But again, until you've tested it, you can't say that it's directly doing anything. So that's where it's like science will say, yes, that will get you stronger, but it really does depend on the person and what they've trained and where their weaknesses are. So not
I
if I
gotcha.
put 100% of people on a slow tempo back squat progression and then retested their back squat, you won't get 100% results. Who's that?
Sorry, I turned the microphone down. Charlie wants me. Oh man, sorry. So you could hear it.
Yeah.
Nice. So, little side note. So, Sam and I have been doing another podcast. The very first episode we did, I know you listened to it, Mitch, but he
Not
goes,
yet.
I know you haven't. He goes, for right when we hit play, he just starts screaming at the door, and I was like, and it would not be a work at home situation if we didn't have a kid screaming at the door. This is the first they just forever like immortalized, just like screaming at the door for me. I wish I wasn't
Yeah.
so cool. We didn't have those moments built from power that he would, you know, he just wants to spend some more time with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You have
I
a
mean,
really
enjoy it
cool
while you
dad.
can.
I
Enjoy
know,
it while you
right?
can, you know.
He won't want me to throw him around for much longer.
But yeah, so at any rate, I think I beat the dead horse there.
Yeah, I've also felt like I took us really off target there. I feel like
Well, that was a good question
I
about the
that.
tempo work, but I think that was better for the strength one, which you were on. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say I should probably go back and listen to that. There's two of them. I think there was two of them
Yeah,
where I left you high and dry.
I just talked just the whole time.
And yet it was so efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't get any fun with it. Anyways,
Right.
should we go through some news?
Let's do it.
So CrossFit semifinals starts this weekend,
Oh yeah,
like Friday or something like that.
with an
Maybe even
asterisk
tomorrow.
next to it
Why?
because she dropped out. But what's
Mal
her name?
O'Brien
O'Brien.
or
Yeah.
Tia Toomey. Both of the best.
No, Mel. Yeah, Mel.
Well, because Tia Toomey just had a baby. And
I know, and
then
like, come on.
and she's probably already hitting workouts hard.
I know, right? Okay.
And then Mal O'Brien, yeah, drops out, and I'm curious to see what more comes out of that. But I just think it's so fascinating that one of the youngest, probably most promising people in the sport for the win this year, the overall win,
Yeah. Out.
is just like mentally done.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm glad you brought that up because Katie and I talked about it today. She's like, "Oh man, did you see the Mel dropped out?" I was like, "Yeah, I did see that." Like, first of all, I was like, "Well, she's like 16. Give her a break." But she's probably older than that, right? How old is she?
Yeah, she's 18 or 19
20
now.
of them. Oh, okay. It's crazy, man. And I wonder if it's just like the mental load and like the nonstop and just I just need a break. Just like give me a
Yeah, I
break.
mean, you could think about as I've gotten older, I feel like the pressure grows more and more on my responsibilities,
Yeah.
my ability to execute them. That this is her first time really having a responsibility or feeling that she has a responsibility. And that
Mhm.
responsibility is to be the best at CrossFit
Yeah.
in the world. It
Could you
does seem
imagine?
like a lot. That does
It's
seem like
pretty
a lot
heavy
of pressure. Yeah.
for a
And
kid. It's
it's coming from everyone. Like the pressures I feel is from my immediate family who I care about and they care about me. The
yeah.
pressure she's feeling is from the entire world and most of them don't give a shit about her.
Yeah. Yeah. Perform.
Yeah. So it's interesting to think about, but yeah, kind of a bummer. I was really looking forward to seeing her smoke everyone, but
Yeah. Be more of a
I think
competition now, at least.
I think that all comes to show like if you don't lead your life with at least some focus on balance,
Yeah.
you are probably going to implode at some point in time. Now it doesn't mean that you aren't tilting in favor of your career path or something like that, but I do think it can be overdone. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, people try to use excuses. There was this other guy who's in the health and fitness space. He's really smart, but he was saying like, basically like if you can only sleep 4 hours, then only sleep 4 hours to achieve your goal because, you know, crazy shit happens and that's how crazy people are made in a good way, right? Like,
Yeah.
and my argument is, yeah, but like, what is the costs of those things? And is it worth the cost in the end? So if I were to be pursuing something that doesn't matter relative to the end of my life, then losing sleep isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Which there's very few things that it would be worth.
Yeah. So like I guess that it's been on the top of my mind, like with Simon, and I'm sure that Mal's been doing CrossFit for like ever, right? But like burnout in a specific sport, like we don't want to do just soccer. He's really good at soccer, but like, do you have a little bit of flavor? Like, there's lots of
Absolutely.
different things happening. Like, the last thing I would want him to do is be like really good and just ruin it for him. Cause I'm like, you go to soccer in the morning, you train 4 or 5 times a day, and he's like 8. And then by the time he's
Yeah.
18, he's like, it's like Andrew Luck. He's like second year as a quarterback playing for the Indianapolis Colts, super high, like ranked quarterback coming out. And he's like, I'm just done. Like, I don't want to fucking do it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I'll go do something else that makes me happy. I don't need to do this. It's like, that'd be such a waste. Oh my God. And then it turned the computer off on me again. But yeah, it's, I wonder if that has a little bit to do with it. Like, she's been doing it for who knows how long at this really high level. And it's just like, she wants to try being a kid for a little bit. Or, I mean, you know, who knows? I mean, I can.
No, I mean, yeah, on the one hand, CrossFit does have a lot of variability, but when you're doing it on her level, that amount of variability isn't really noticeable. It feels like the same shit every day.
Yeah.
Because you only test so many things in the CrossFit games. Like, you're going to put them on a rowing machine, you're going to put them on a bike, you're going to make them run, you're going to do it, these weighted movements, these gymnastics movements. Like, you're going to do all those same movements, and there's going to be a few outliers, but none of them are going to be like, go play basketball and see who's best at that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
none of them are going to be that. So I think that's where the weakness is in the sport overall. And I think you're 100% with raising the kids. I think you're going to get them to an age where the demand on you as a parent is going to be to teach them the pursuit of excellence and diligence and perseverance. But if they're already being taught that from 6 to 10,
Yeah.
they're going to burn out in those next years, you know, like, yeah, I think variety and just fun is purely the focus while they're that young. And then getting serious probably shouldn't be till they're done in high school, really.
Yeah. Went to a game last week and watched Simon playing against this other team. And there was like this coach that I was standing next to. And he was just like almost berating the 7-year-old, just like, listen to me. You do this. I'm like, that is no fun for that kid. Like, I was kind of like embarrassed to be standing next to the guy. I was like, geez, like the most important thing he needs to be doing right now is just like enjoying what he's doing so that he wants to come back next year and do it again and be just a little bit better than the year before. But it was kind of disappointing, but it's like, we're going to start seeing it now. I feel like, you know, the parents are going to get a little bit more agitated and the parents are going to have like that higher expectation for their kid.
Oh yeah.
And every now and then, like I might get caught up in it, but I'm not yelling, you know, at my kid out there. I'm like, like,
yeah,
you'll
get competitive. You'll get competitive.
Yeah. But it's man, it's disappointing, but whatever.
All right. Well, that does it for episode 17 of See You in Valhalla podcast. We'll hope to see you guys on the next one, where we'll be talking about speed, which is very similar to power. So,
and I guess real quick question, maybe some clarification. Is it 13 or is it 10 check-ins this
10.
month for?
I 10 for the Valhalla Club. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right.
Nice.
Well,
we'll see you in Valhalla.
Talk to you guys. Comment, like, subscribe, ask questions.